So to begin, I just want to start by acknowledging the unusual school year that we are all experiencing right now. I know that different schools, different school districts started the year at different times. So we are all at different places in terms of settling into this school year. Landmarks Elementary Middle School welcomed students back in early September, and those students are participating in a hybrid model in which the students and faculty have been split in half into two separate pods, and each pod is alternating a full week of in-person on-campus learning and then a full week of remote learning. This allows us to only have half of the typical number of people on campus at any one time, which helps everyone abide by the health and safety protocols that we have in place. On campus, we have traffic patterns and sanitizing stations in all the buildings. Masks are worn throughout the day with scheduled mask breaks. There's more structure to the lunches and recesses with more physical distancing in place. But importantly, so much about what makes Landmark has remained the same. The well-defined learning profile of our students, the small group, engaging, interactive instruction, the daily one-on-one literacy remediation, and the incredible dedication and innovation of our faculty. These things represent the values and priorities of Landmark as an institution, and that will be the focus of our presentation today. So we'll jump into a brief history of Landmark and how we came to develop our founding principles. Landmark was founded in 1971 by a man named Dr. Charles Drake. Dr. Drake was a diagnostician as well as an educator, and he himself was dyslexic. Growing up, he was determined to develop certain strategies and techniques to get by academically. And by the time he reached early adulthood, one strategy in particular that he had developed was really breaking down the task, the skill of reading, into its smallest possible parts in the hopes of understanding and analyzing each of those underlying skills, each of those small tasks and skills that go into learning how to read, in the hopes that he could master each of those step by step. This approach accomplished two really important things for our discussion today. One, it gave him firsthand knowledge of what those underlying skills truly are that allow our brains to sound out words and retrieve spelling rules and read sentences fluently and automatically. And two, it allowed him to create small manageable goals for himself. And as he accomplished each goal, that feeling of success, no matter how small, gave him a boost to his motivation and his confidence. And he recognized just how important that was for him. Despite his significant intellect and his many strengths, he really needed that boost to his confidence and his motivation, because the task of learning to read was truly difficult for him. And so he realized how important that was for himself and how important it would be for any learner working on something that was truly difficult for them. So Dr. Drake's experience developing his own literacy skills went on to inform the foundational teaching principles that Landmark uses to this day. Landmark School educates bright students with language-based learning disabilities by explicitly identifying and breaking down the underlying skills needed to read and write, and by micro-uniting instruction, which means breaking down skills, information, and assignments into small manageable chunks, creating attainable goals, which is how we provide opportunities for success for our students, which naturally increases their motivation and helps our students to reinvest in and re-engage with their own learning. In 1971, we opened our doors to about 40 students. This year, we opened the school year with over 435 students enrolled on 2 separate campuses. Our presentation today focuses on our elementary middle school, a day school serving students in grades 2 through 8 with a current enrollment of 165 students. This includes an elementary program of 50 students in grades 2 through 5 and a middle school program of 115 students in grades 6, 7, and 8. We also have a separate high school campus located down the road that has a day program as well as a boarding program with a wonderful residential curriculum. So who are the students who come to Landmark? Landmark students are bright, they're intellectually curious, creative thinkers, good problem solvers, big picture thinkers with unique ideas, the ability to make interesting connections and associations between their ideas, between concepts they've learned and their own life experiences. Landmark students are also well-adjusted, which means that they generally get along well with peers and adults. They have good social awareness, good emotional intelligence. They're generally able to manage their day-to-day experiences and the typical stressors that go along with being a kid these days. Having said that, certainly some Landmark students are dealing with some school-related anxiety or lowered self-esteem related to their previous school experiences, but they have an emotional readiness and resilience and motivation to face their challenges and really work on the skills that are hardest for them once they're in a learning environment with teachers who care about them and understand how they learn and are meeting them where they are. Landmark students may also struggle somewhat with attention and focus, but they're able to respond well to redirection, and they're generally able to regulate their attention to a degree that's not distracting to others. And finally, all Landmark students have been diagnosed with a language-based learning disability. This is an umbrella term that encompasses a number of other terms or diagnoses you may have heard. It includes the IEP category of specific learning disability in reading or in writing. In terms of a neuropsychological evaluation, it includes the terms specific learning disorder with impairment in reading, also known as dyslexia, or specific learning disorder with impairment in writing, also known as dysgraphia. It also encompasses a category of diagnosis called a language disorder. When talking about language disorders, it's important to note that Landmark's curriculum is designed to support a profile that's stronger in higher order receptive language and weaker in expressive language. We'll talk more about that receptive strength in just a moment and how we support expressive skill development a little bit later in the presentation. So next we'll move into the cognitive profile of our students. These terms can be found on the cognitive testing that we require as part of our application process. That's the WISC, the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, often done as part of a psychoeducational evaluation or a neuropsychological evaluation. The areas of strength up top here, it's verbal comprehension, visual spatial perception, and organization and fluid reasoning. These areas fall in the average to superior range for our students. We'll break them down individually. Verbal comprehension refers to a strong conceptual understanding of the world. As we talked a bit about already, Landmark students have wonderful, unique ideas and the ability to make interesting connections and categorize and associate their ideas. So perhaps your child loves stories and you read them stories or you watch movies with them and you hear them connecting something they heard in a story or a movie with an experience in their own life. Or maybe they love nature science and you as a family go on hikes on the weekends and you hear them connecting something that you see on a hike to something that they've learned in a nature science unit. So that higher order concept formation and connection making is a for our students. Visual spatial perception refers to the ability to perceive spatial relationships and work your way through visual information. So hands-on activities like building with Legos or woodworking or sculpting with clay or building a fort are great examples of activities that use visual spatial perception and organization. Envisioning something in our minds and then being able to build or create or put the pieces together to create that vision. Fluid reasoning refers to problem solving and logical thinking ability. the ability to generalize information from a specific context to a larger context, the ability to recognize a pattern and predict what comes next. And this area is also tied to math reasoning and understanding number concepts. So the areas of difficulty for our students fall in the realms of working memory and or processing speed. And when we look at testing, we see these index areas or these skill areas falling in the low average to just below average range typically. Working memory refers to the ability to hold on to information in the forefronts of our minds and be able to work with that information in the moment. It refers to both visual and auditory memory. So when it comes to language and language processing, a struggle with visual memory can represent a struggle to hold on to words when copying information from the board or hold on to common spelling patterns. Auditorily, this could be a struggle with holding on to spoken language or holding on to the sounds and phonemes of language long enough to manipulate them, which has an impact on acquiring reading and spelling skills. Processing speed can refer to many things, but here in this context, we're talking about the brain's ability to recognize visual symbols and automatically make a connection between that symbol and what it represents. This can involve scanning a row of symbols and quickly recognizing which is the same and which is different. It can involve forming and quickly retrieving new connections. For example, we all know that a red octagon means stop, but we may process that information and retrieve that information at slightly different speeds. And we know that developmentally that ability increases as a student develops into a young adult. And again, this all has a huge impact on language, on recognizing and processing spelling patterns and words and clauses and phrases. The other term that I want to throw out that connects to processing speed is the term rapid naming. You may have seen that in your child's testing, and that rapid naming is very much connected with the development of reading skills, especially when combined with struggles with processing speed. So this next slide is a video. I'm not going to show it right now. We will be sending you an email after this presentation with this video linked, and I really encourage you all to take the time to watch it if you haven't already seen it on our website. This video includes direct interviews with students, so you really get the chance to hear them tell their own story and be able to reflect on the transformation that they've seen in themselves. And it really speaks to the transformational experience that can happen at Landmark and just the incredible self-awareness and reflection that our students have. So for the next part of the presentation, we'll move into the model and structure of our curriculum. Landmark's curriculum is skills-based, which means that we are focused on the development of reading and writing skills. And so we work on content that parallels the Massachusetts curriculum framework. So our faculty are thinking about those frameworks when they're developing their lesson plans and the scope and sequence of the curriculum. But there is a heavy focus on using that content to facilitate the development of underlying reading and writing skills. And one of the ways that we do this is by placing students in classes based on skill level and learning profile. So the classes at Landmark are very small, typically 6 to 8 students in a class, and those students are grouped taking into account the different literacy skills that we look at as part of the admission process, both in the testing that you've had and on a placement screening that we do. And it's based somewhat on their learning profile on different aspects of their specific working memory profile or their specific expressive language profile. So those classes are very carefully grouped. We do take grade and age into account as secondary factors. So we're not placing second graders in class with fifth graders. They're usually just one grade up or down in any given class. And then all Landmark classes are language-based. which means that these are classrooms that work on the 4 areas of literacy: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And again, just the class sizes at Landmark are very small. Elementary classes can be as small as 4 students up to 6 or 7 students. Middle school classes typically hover around 6 to 8 students, but no class will ever exceed 8 students in a class. We have a very small student-teacher ratio here at Landmark, 3 to 1. So 3 students for every 1 faculty member here. And Landmark is a teacher training program. So we have teachers coming to us who are then enrolled in a master's degree program working towards that, that degree. So 78% of our teachers already have their master's degree in mild to moderate special needs. Those that don't are automatically enrolled in that program working towards that degree. So the next part of the presentation will move on to some really unique features of Landmark's program and how it's implemented. One of these unique features is the role of the academic advisor. The academic advisor at Landmark is a really careful and hands-on advisor, much more so than an advisor in a more mainstream program. This person really carefully oversees a student's academic schedule, thinking about the class groupings, thinking about the level of challenge in each of the classes that a student has been placed in. They also work closely with the one-on-one tutor. We'll talk in just a moment about the one-on-one tutorial, but the academic advisor works very carefully with that tutorial teacher, thinking about the methodologies that can be brought into that class. And they are the main contact for parents. So the academic advisor can be the parent's liaison to a student's teachers. If you reach out with a question, it's the academic advisor's policy to always get back to you within 24 hours after researching your question, connecting with different people on campus to make sure they get you the feedback that you want. The classes offered at Landmark are unique in that the first 3 classes listed here all work on language arts skill building. So you'll see below we have classes like math, science, and social studies to round out a typical core curriculum. But whereas a typical core curriculum might only include 1 period of the day working on language arts skills, at Landmark we have these first 3 classes listed here that are working on different kinds of language arts skill building over the course of 3 different periods during a student's day. The one-on-one tutorial class, a daily one-on-one literacy remediation tutorial, which is working on the skills that each student needs to target the most. Language arts, which focuses heavily on the writing process, and then oral expression literature, which focuses on understanding language and the concepts of language through the development, the organization, and retrieval of oral language. And then we have phys ed and elective periods. So 1 period each day will alternate between phys ed and an elective class. And then elementary students also have an enrichment period, which refers to a time built into their schedule for fun project-based activities or discussions, perhaps a craft project relating to a theme from science or social studies unit, or a discussion of an important topic like building and maintaining friendships. So the one-on-one tutorial at Landmark is the hallmark of a Landmark education. Every student at our elementary middle school has this one-on-one class built into their daily schedule every single day. It involves intensive remediation for the skills that each student needs to work on the most. We really think about the specific individualized curriculum for each student based on the testing that you've had done, and a screening process that we go through, and updated screening and testing that students do once they're enrolled here. So a continuum of literacy skills are targeted, from phonemic awareness through decoding, through understanding linguistic patterns, reading fluency, higher order comprehension, as well as spelling and written composition. Landmark creates their individualized curriculum for each student in this tutorial by picking and choosing from a number of different methodologies that are out there. So Landmark is not, for example, an Orton Gillingham institution, or we're not a Wilson institution. We are an institution that really values being able to flexibly and carefully create that individualized program for each student, drawing from a number of research-based programs that are out there. So a few of those programs are listed here. The Lindamood Bell LIPS program, which really carefully targets phonemic awareness, Let's Read and Merrill Linguistic Readers, helping students to retrieve and organize linguistic patterns, Read Naturally and Great Leaps for reading fluency, as well as many materials authored by Landmark faculty over the course of the many years of Landmark being in existence. The language arts class at Landmark, this is a daily class that every student has, and it's small group instruction. So this would be one of the classes where students are in a small group, 4 to 7 students for elementary, 6 to 8 students for middle school. And this class is a highly structured approach to the writing process. We're really breaking down the writing process into that highly scaffolded step-by-step approach. They use thematic units, so a unit like the history of the Hershey Candy Company, or learning about Shackleton's exploration of Antarctica. And so these thematic units allow the class to develop a shared content and vocabulary to be able to talk about and write about. And then we use graphic organizers to really focus on the sentence templates, paragraph templates, and multi-paragraph essay templates that we want our students to become, that we want to become automatic for our students. There is a huge emphasis on sentence development. So if you walk into any language arts class at Landmark, it's very likely that at some point during the class, you will see the class collaboratively writing a sentence together, meaning that they are creating a kernel sentence, the bare bones of a basic sentence, and then they are carefully layering in elaboration, diagramming the sentence together, understanding the different parts of speech, understanding how different clauses function, talking about that as a class, and really learning how to make their sentences grammatically correct, but also powerful in terms of saying what they want to say. And this happens truly almost every day in class collaboratively. One of the things that I've heard from some parents in the past is this idea that their child never really solidified their sentence writing. They were taught the idea of subject and verb and the idea of what a sentence requires, but then the curriculum moved on and their child never really got that chance to develop that foundational component of writing. And so here at Landmark, we work on that extensively, and that becomes not only an automatic skill, but a powerful skill for our students. And lastly, I want to quickly touch upon Landmark's use of cursive writing. We do teach cursive to all students at the elementary middle school level. We introduce it in the one-on-one tutorial class, and then it's also heavily worked on in these language arts classes. Philosophically, Landmark feels that teaching cursive writing is very important, not just for the skill itself. The skill itself is valuable for allowing for that fluid connection between letters, helping to minimize reversals in terms of writing letters because the writing utensil doesn't lift off the page between the beginning and the end of the word. But also, beyond just the skill itself, what developing that skill does for the language processing pathways in the brain. Cursive research has shown that cursive activates parts of the brain associated with language and memory, much more so than both printing and significantly more so than typing. And so to any degree that students can develop their cursive writing during their developmental years, they're helping to strengthen those language processing pathways in the brain, to strengthen those areas associated with language and memory, to aid retrieval and organization of spelling patterns, and be able to think about those linguistic patterns and process them more quickly. Another really important and unique class at Landmark is the oral expression literature class. So we just talked about that idea of strengthening the language processing pathways in the brain. And if you think about oral expression, expressive language as a pathway in the brain, if any of you have had that experience where you just need to talk something out in order to understand it better. And I think if you've had that experience, you have a sense of the fact that sometimes we need that expressive language pathway to be strengthened in order to crystallize our use of language, our understanding of concepts supported by language. So these oral expression classes give students an opportunity to work on that organization and retrieval of language in a highly structured and scaffolded curriculum that works through skills like narrative sequencing, comparing and contrasting information, explaining a process or a procedure, or sharing an opinion. This class also does involve some social pragmatic skill development as well, especially at the elementary level. As I mentioned earlier, Landmark students have strong social awareness, strong emotional intelligence, but when it comes to language processing, every student could benefit from some scaffolding and support in terms of the development of language pragmatics and communication pragmatics at the early, especially at the early elementary grade. So things like being able to share an opinion respectfully, learning how to modulate the volume and tone of your voice, thinking about body language and eye contact. So those skills are embedded into the oral expression curriculum here as well. Our math curriculum at Landmark is very exciting. Teaching to the strengths that our students have, it is highly tactile, hands-on, kinesthetic, which means it involves a lot of movement, and highly visual. The math curriculum here was developed by a man named Christopher Wooden. He has developed a whole curriculum called Wooden Math, and he uses elements of that to really oversee the math curriculum here at Landmark. One of the visual pieces of his instruction involves the use of icons, which are symbols that represent math concepts, and they help to create meaningful chunks of information to relieve the burden on working memory that many of our students are dealing with. I'll give you a few examples of the math curriculum here just to really explain the multisensory hands-on nature of the curriculum. Another aspect of it in general is that concepts are taught first and then the details are filled in after that. So at the elementary level, one example that I observed were students working on a subtraction problem using large laminated cards with dots on each card representing different numbers, like you would see on dice. And during the lesson, they were using cards with 1 dot up through 5 dots. And each student had the opportunity to select 2 cards, and the class helped them figure out what those 2 cards added up to, and then they laid the cards on the ground and took one away while practicing the language of what they were doing out loud. So if they chose 4 and 5, they would say 9 minus 4 equals 5, while physically removing that 4 dot card, that icon card. So kinesthetically using that movement to reinforce the concept of what subtraction means, that subtraction means taking away. As an example of a middle school lesson, I observed students who were working on the equation for slope. And these students had already worked on how to plot points on a graph. But instead of using a graphing calculator or working with graph paper, these students were using a huge grid that actually took up an entire wall, and it was a grid made of ropes. And so the grid had an x-axis and a y-axis, and the vertical ropes on this grid were actually pulleys that the students could pull up and down to move a flag into position once they figured out the point that that flag was going to be marking. So each student had the opportunity to plug a number into the equation for slope, calculate that point, count over and up, and then pull the pulley system to move the flag to hoist it into the right place. Once all the students had taken a turn, they could see that their flags actually lined up to create the image of the sloping line that their equation represented. And I personally, I just remember using graphing calculators when I was growing up, where we would plug an equation into the calculator, hit enter, and see the image appear on the screen. And I never had that clear connection that these students were developing between the actual solving of the equation and what that image actually represented. So this really, it utilized our students' strengths in that concept formation and connection making, while also using a highly multisensory, hands-on kinesthetic approach to that concept. Moving on to the topic of technology, which has become such an important topic for all of us this particular year. So Landmark philosophically has always believed that technology should be used as an educational tool, but not as a bypass to the reading and writing skill development that we want our students to be developing while they're here. We want to give them every opportunity to be doing the actual reading and writing skill development that we're teaching. So we do not use technology that would be considered assistive technology that would read or write for students, but we're certainly using it to support their education in different ways. And so this particular school year, we've begun using elements that we've always used, things like Google Classroom and Google Meet. Google Classroom was a platform that we had been using for a while to organize classroom materials and to help students learn to be able to access and work on documents collaboratively. And now this year, we've certainly been using that quite a bit, in addition to Google Meet, the platform that we're using today, where students are accessing their remote teaching via the Google Meet platform. Another point that I just want to touch upon is the idea of a digital citizenship curriculum. We have worked with students all along on different technology-based skills, and so that curriculum encompasses different things at different grade levels, all the way from things like password creation and safety, through email etiquette and expectations, appropriately and safely sharing information online, identifying reliable sources, and I think especially important this year, learning to balance your use of media and your personal well-being, and thinking about, if you are interacting with your friends online, what are the safe and healthy ways to do that? What are the meaningful ways to connect with friends online? Are there ways to do that outside of social media that are more meaningful and more comfortable? So that really encompasses that digital citizenship curriculum that we feel is really important for our students. Landmark also has fun classes that are incorporated into each student's day. In a typical year, students would have one elective class built into their daily schedule. That class would be phys ed every other day. So every student has a phys ed class every other day in their schedule. On the days when they don't have phys ed, they would have given us some options for their elective choice, and we would have placed them into one of the classes listed below. So classes like visual art and digital art, woodworking, small engine repair, practical arts, which combines elements of woodworking and small engines, kids around the globe, where students are learning about really brave and wonderful kids living in other countries and designing community service projects to support those kids and connect with them. A music class where students can learn different instruments like ukulele, drums, guitar, bass, and piano. and a bike repair class where students can learn the elements of bike maintenance and repair, and get an opportunity to do a little bit of bike riding on some trails around campus. Also, in a typical year, we have some after-school activities. So this daily schedule is the typical daily schedule, and the schedule this year is pretty similar, but usually the school year would start with a morning meeting where everyone would come together at 7:45, and the first period of the day would then start around 8 o'clock. There are 8 periods of the day, so that encompasses the academic classes that we talked about, as well as a lunch period and the elective period. And these would be 47-minute classes with a 30-minute lunch and 5 minutes between classes. And then that after-school activity time frame that would bring us up to 4:30 Monday through Thursday. So this year we've adjusted a bit, and we are currently exploring some after-school activity programs, including some I believe there's a cross-country club in the works, and soccer skills and drills. So these are programs that we're hoping to get underway, understanding that it's a bit of an unusual school year, managing the health and safety protocols and just the pandemic-related logistics that we're dealing with. And so similarly, this particular year, that range of after-school clubs we don't have all of these offerings this year, but these would be the typical range of offerings that would take place in a given school year. The art room would typically be open, different art projects, arts and crafts clubs, a bike club, cheerleading for our sports teams, a very involved and active community action team doing community service in our community, drama for middle school students, the library being open as a resource for students to explore and do research and get homework done, Lego building at the elementary level, and model boat building at our middle school level, as well as general woodworking projects in our woodworking shop. We also have a range of sports offerings where our students can compete in sports like basketball, cross country, soccer, baseball, and track. And then listed below are sports that our 8th graders can participate in at the high school campus. So things like lacrosse, golf, tennis, and wrestling. Homework is also a really important topic at Landmark, but this particular school year we have suspended homework for the start of the school year as students transition back from being at home during the spring and just getting used to this unusual school year. But philosophically, in general, Landmark believes that homework should be a practice and review of skills and content that were already introduced to the point of independence in the classroom. So they're a reinforcement of daily lessons, and students should be able to complete homework assignments on their own without the help of their parents. If we have students on the panel today who were here last year, this would be a good topic to ask them about, just to describe their homework experience, their typical homework experience from a previous year. This next video, again, I'm going to skip over this video as well. We had realized that videos just don't translate well into this Google Meet platform, but again, this video will be emailed out to you along with the other one. This particular video focuses on our summer program, and we are excited to be offering a summer program for 2021. And you know what, we can definitely get you the dates. They are already decided on. We know that for sure we plan to be offering an academic summer program, which includes 3 classes for students entering grades 1 through 7. And these 3 classes are modeled after the classes that we already talked about during the school year. So the one-on-one tutorial that really targets specific literacy remediation with goals designed for the specific skills that each student needs to work on the most. And then the language arts class that we talked about that focuses heavily on the writing process. And then a language structure and literature class, which focuses on that retrieval and organization of oral language, as well as discussions of literature, especially poetry, over the summer. The afternoon activity programs are still up in the air right now. We're not sure if we're going to be able to offer afternoon activity programs, but we'll certainly keep everyone posted about that. These are programs that we've offered in the past. So they include a program called Explorations, which combined marine science. So students got to go snorkeling at different coastal locations, explore the marine biology of the area, and go kayaking. And the Explorations program also included adventure ropes. Students would get to use our ropes course that we have on campus. They would get to go climbing in the trees and develop their confidence and trust building, group initiative work, being able to accomplish a specific goal as a group, while also taking those risks climbing high in the air. And then creations, which involves art, so digital art, some elements of visual art, as well as improv acting, so that drama component where students would learn some improv acting skills like scene development and character development. And finally, mountain biking, which would be offered to students entering grades 5 through 7. And that program involves the maintenance and repair of bicycles that we offer in our elective class during the year, but also a lot of actual mountain biking through the trails that we have around campus, and a little bit of trail maintenance work and some wilderness survival training as well. So thank you all again for being here with us today. I am going to stop sharing my screen with you so that we can turn the presentation over to our faculty administrators and students. The students have not yet joined us, but they'll be here soon. So we'll turn the presentation back over to Katie, who can introduce our faculty administrators.
Thank you, Emily. All right. So continue to use that chat bar feature to think about as you consider questions that you'd like to ask of our administrators, our faculty, and then in the next 10 minutes or so, our student panelists. All right, so I see Bob Bruto, bright and smiling. Bob, would you like to greet everyone first? Oh, you're muted, Bob. The most uttered praise of 2020.
That's protocol. I'm supposed to be muted. So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Emily, for that wonderful presentation. I see we have quite a few people on the call this morning, and I don't know where you all are, but I can tell you that the sun is sparkling off the ocean here where Landmark is, and that's a wonderful thing, especially after the downpour we had yesterday. So Landmark has been a major part of my life. I came here right out of college and was a founding faculty member at Landmark in 1971, which only seems like yesterday, but we started with 40 kids. And one of the things I'm most proud about, even in this year of the virus, is that the value proposition of Landmark is just driven by our mission. And so even this year, when we've had to pivot and do things differently, the diagnostic prescriptive model where we really understand how a child learns, what are the strengths, what are the challenges, how are they processing, and then how do we create a program for each and every student through the one-to-one tutorial and the class groupings. That's the value proposition, and that has never varied for a population of students diagnosed with language-based learning disabilities. It's who we are, it's what we do, and when we're at full capacity, no two students in the entire school on both campuses have the same program, because it's designed, customized for each student. So we're very mission driven. We also do an awful lot of work outside of Landmark. We work with about 5,000 teachers a year through our outreach program, training teachers how to work with kids who have different learning styles, how to integrate those learning styles into a traditional classroom. We do a lot of research with the Institute of Health Professions at MGH, with Harvard, with MIT. We're always trying to take our experience, research and help that inform our best practices so we continue to grow day after day, year after year. So I welcome you to this meeting. I encourage all of your questions, and just thank you for being here. And after the meeting, if you have questions, be in touch with any one of us at any time. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Next for an introduction, Claire Sullivan, head of the elementary middle school.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be able to meet with you all. As Bob noted, we don't necessarily know where you all are right now, but we wish we could be greeting you on campus. But I'm so glad that we have this platform to answer any of your questions. And as was mentioned earlier, when the student panelists join, you'll really get a great insight into what life is like from a student perspective on campus. And it's been really wonderful this fall. We're in a hybrid mode, so we are able to be on campus and to see the students just thriving, regardless of everything else that's going on in the world. They're able to come to school, or when they're learning virtually, and still accessing that curriculum that they need and doing so well with it. So it's been a really fantastic start to the year. And I look forward to speaking with all of you and hopefully meeting some of you in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Claire. I see Deb Blanchard. Could you say a quick hello?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Debbie Blanchard. I'm the academic dean at this campus, so my responsibilities are primarily related to the curriculum and student scheduling and the academic program. So look forward to meeting everyone.
Deb works very closely with Megan Stevens. Megan, can you say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Stevens. I am the reading supervisor and the testing coordinator at the EMS.
Great. And Kirk Swanson.
Thanks, Katie. Good morning, everybody. Glad you could join us today at EMS. I'm the Dean of Students here at the Landmark Elementary Middle School. I work with all the students, student life, make sure students are doing well, they're safe, they're part of the community, work closely with the faculty, parents. So we're grateful that you're here today. And as other people have noted, we wish you were in person, but we'll hopefully get to see you soon. And the best part is right ahead of us, the students you get to meet and ask some good questions, and they'll give you some great answers. But thank you for coming today.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. So the students will, their second period class wraps up in about 5 minutes, so they'll be joining us. But before we get to hear the student voices, I'd love for you to populate the chat with any questions you might have for our faculty, the leaders on the elementary middle school campus. I'm sure they're eager to answer any questions. Or if you brainstorm some questions you'd like to hear from the student perspective, go ahead and populate those. If you'd rather vocalize your question, feel free just to write question, and we'll give you the floor to speak.
There was a great question in the chat while Emily was talking about how kids transition back to their regular schools and whether they finish out at the middle school at 8th grade. There's a process that they work with through their academic advisors, but I wanted to defer to Claire and Deb and Megan sort of as to some individual scenarios on how they find it. You can see the question in the chat, but I'd love for any of you three to speak to that.
Sure, I can mention transition. Yeah, we have a unique situation here at EMS because students are always coming in at all grades and leaving at all grades. It isn't as if we're a school or a campus where you start in first grade and stay right through. So every year we have new students at every grade, and we have students leaving at all phases in their Landmark stay. Our goal is to help kids transition out to a less restrictive environment. So we're always evaluating and working with families to see when students are ready to leave. We have a person on staff who's in charge of transition, guidance in transition, Carl Pulkkinen. And then, as Libby mentioned, the academic advisor works with your student and your family for the plan. It's so individualized because it depends a lot on where the student is going. There are all kinds of scenarios. Some people go to Landmark High School in the 8th grade. Some people leave us at 5th grade and go to a different middle school. Some people leave really at every grade. And it depends if they're heading to Landmark High School, a public school, a private school. So we help you evaluate, because a lot of it depends not only on your student's readiness and the skill level, but what's on the other end, what kind of supports are needed and what supports are available on the other end. So it's really an individual decision for each family when a student is ready to leave. And some kids stay on and go to Landmark High School. So we see the whole gamut. I don't know if Claire or others want to add to that.
No, I think that was a great answer. Thank you, Deb. And that's one of the unique things that you heard from Emily earlier, that we have this academic advisor system at Landmark, which is very unique compared to other academic institutions. And it's a point person, so to speak, who really analyzes your student's profile, knows that inside and out, works with the teachers directly, is really that conduit between you all, the family, your school district, and the classroom teachers, and making sure that the educational plan is right on track. They're constantly tweaking that. And that's one of the conferences that you'd have. We have an upcoming Parents' Day. So not only do you meet with the individual teachers, but you also meet with that academic advisor, that point person, to really assess where your student is at any given time in their program, which is a really added benefit of what the system that we have on the campus.
Great. A few more good questions are coming in. The most recent one, maybe Kurt, you can address this. It says, can you speak to what outdoor learning and break time is typical at the elementary level? Thinking, of course, before the pandemic.
So I'm sorry, Katie, the question was about outdoor learning?
Yeah, outdoor learning or break times, and anyone else can answer this as well.
Sure. So before COVID, when we're all live on campus, and when we're here hybrid too, we have 2 recesses a day. One it's happening right now after period 2, where kids get snacks and then they go to different places on the campus. And then after their lunch period, they get some time outside. And we're trying to get kids out more so this year because of the just getting them out in the fresh air. But they do have an opportunity to socialize, with other students, and faculty members are responsible to watch these areas, supervise the kids. And we do also offer after-school programs where kids have the opportunity to stay after school and participate in activities and again socialize. And we're just starting a few of these up now, this time of year, for the COVID year, but we're trying to get those going too. So we try to get the kids involved with their peers here, because we know they commute from a lot of other towns. So we try to get them together and have the time to socialize and enjoy the outdoors as well.
Thanks, Kirk. Any other examples of when we would have students out and about during the typical class day? Claire, you're nodding.
Well, I can answer that. In a more typical school year, and even this year as well, I shouldn't say that we don't this year, we really focus on time on task. So we prioritize that skill-based learning. Time with the teacher is of utter importance. So we do encourage teachers to create lessons, whether that's in the classroom or outside, that are all about the purpose of the lesson, making sure they're time on task. We're utilizing the time with our students, and we really prioritize that. But at the elementary level, as the question, you'll see a lot of, if you walk around our campus, you'll see particularly the elementary classes outside on our courtyard, and they might be doing a math lesson using chalk and jumping the numbers, or a multiplication problem, they jump through it. Or for a language arts class, they might go out to brainstorm adjectives and find objects around a campus that then they bring into the classroom to then describe, or to help them use for colors or size or texture. So we don't necessarily have like outdoor classrooms per se, but we utilize the outdoors as long as it's within the realm of what our curriculum entails, and bringing that back into the classroom is really important. So This year's been a great exposure to that too. We're getting kids outside more this year, and that may have an effect on our lessons in the future. And that's something that time will tell. But hopefully that answers.
Yeah, thank you guys, both Kirk and Claire. So I'm seeing some of our students are jumping on the call, which is really exciting. We'll make sure to circle back to some of the questions that are more faculty oriented, but I want to make sure that we get to hear from the students before we send them off to their third period class. Again, this is the time that they would typically be having their morning break. So it's really great that the students bravely are giving their time to speak with families today. So students, I'm going to ask you one at a time to unmute yourself and give a little introduction, your name, your grade, how long you've been at Landmark, and the town you're from. All right, Liam, I saw you enter first. Would you like to say your introduction, please?
Okay, I am Liam Booker. This is my second year at Landmark. I'm in 6th grade, and I live in Hanover, Massachusetts.
Thanks for joining us, Liam. I've got more questions coming your way in a minute, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Maggie, I know you were really excited to join today. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Maggie. This is my first year at Landmark, and I live in North Andover.
What grade are you in, Maggie?
Oh, 4th.
Great. We're glad you're here. Thank you for joining. All right. I think I'm waiting still. Don't see Harrison, right? Harrison, stop me if you're here. And then the other.
Hello.
Oh, you
I'm
are?
here. Yep.
Thanks, Harrison. Can you say your introduction?
Hello, my name is Harrison. I am in 7th grade, and
Where
I live in West Roxbury, Massachusetts.
How long have you been at Landmark, Harrison?
I've been here surprisingly for 5 years.
Yay.
This
Great.
is my 5th year here.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last student I'm looking for is Emma. Emma, are you on the call?
Hello.
Hi, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Emma Hyatt, and I've been at Landmark for just 1 month.
Yay. What grade are you in, Emma?
6th grade.
And your town?
Billerica, Mass.
Perfect. You guys are so brave. Thank you for joining. The families really appreciate it. Okay, students, the first question. Wondering if any of you were at all nervous or had reservations about leaving your current school to join Landmark. Yeah? Yeah, Maggie, go ahead. So you're going to speak to if you were nervous and maybe what kind of changed, how you feel now.
Yeah, so when I first came here, I was definitely nervous when I came for the orientation and the tour. At first, like some teachers asked like where I was from and stuff, and I kind of forgot because I was really nervous. And then as soon as I got here, I started making friends and stuff, and that made it a lot easier. And I'm a lot more. It's gotten easier and more used to the place, and so it makes it and who the people are and stuff, and so it's made me feel a lot more confident about this and less nervous about it for sure.
Thanks, Maggie. Emma, your transition was super recent. Do you want to speak to how you were feeling?
The transition is very hard, and you feel like you're not going to make friends and that you're going to just be lonely, and it's not like that. The teachers and students here are very inclusive, and they all care about how you feel and how your learning is, and it's amazing.
Oh, I'm glad it's going so smoothly for you. Liam, I see you nodding along. Do you agree with Emma?
Yeah, everyone here is super nice.
Were you nervous about coming to Landmark?
I was very nervous.
Did you want to come? You can be honest.
I kind of didn't. I was like, how am I going to see my friends? And it's a long drive. I live like an hour and 19 minutes away from here.
Whoa. So is it worth it?
Yeah. It's really nice school. everyone here is really kind.
Good. Good. Harrison, you've been here for a while, but anything to add?
It was actually pretty easy for me. I was ready to get out of the school that I was in. It was mostly annoying at first because that school that I went to is actually really hard on me. I barely even knew anything. I didn't even really know how to write or read. But once I came here, I was kind of nervous. Commute was very long. There's like traffic, or because sometimes I got out during like rush hour, and rush hour is pretty long for me. If there was no traffic, it would be 1 hour and 15 minutes, and if it wasn't, it would be 2 hours just trying to get to the person who the bus driver was dropping off, and then me and my brother. But my brother's now in the high school, so.
Harrison, I'll ask a quick question for you and Liam as families think of other questions they have for the students. You guys have long commutes. So thinking about this year where you're a week on and a week off, do you prefer the week at home where you don't have to commute, or do you prefer the campus week? Just curious.
So I pretty much like both.
Oh, yeah?
I get to talk. I like both of it because I get to talk to my brother. I get to talk to my bus driver because we have a long ride. You get to make new relationships with people, and yeah,
Nice. Liam,
makes it much better.
Oh, good.
I prefer remote because usually I am really active with sports for my town. So usually right when I get home, I have to go to sports. So I prefer remote so I can actually sleep in. And
Gotcha. Emma, what about you? Billerica, right?
Yeah, my commute is normally like 45 minutes, and I've gotten just to learn that the commute is worth it, and just when you're commuting, you just sit there and relax. It's the time that you get like some alone time, and I've learned to just like it, and so I don't really mind my commute.
Nice. Maggie, you want to add to that?
I agree that I've gotten used to the drive up here. I carpool with my friend Emma. Not Emma. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Her name is Anna. And we sometimes play games in the car and stuff, and it's I'm very social, so it's made it a lot easier, the drive up.
Nice. Thanks, guys. All right, families, let's ask the students anything. These students are candid, and I'll share their experience. A good question, though, while they're brainstorming more questions for you guys. I always like to hear your favorite thing about Landmark and anything you'd want to change about Landmark. So give that some thought, and when you think you have 2 answers, best thing and anything you'd change, let me know. What do you guys think?
I think a lot of things.
What's your favorite part, Harrison?
My favorite part about Landmark is the people. The people are very friendly. They have a very great energy, and the teaching is very, very, very helpful for me and my disability with my learning, and probably others. And they have a great they have very good methods because I'm really fidgety, so they have great methods for like me to keep on moving and stay focused. And my very favorite part is milk break because we get a break and we get to have food. And sometimes we only have, like, in my old school, we had snack time. That wasn't even like long enough. It was like probably 2 minutes. We have at least 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes if, well, no, not 30 minutes, 20 minutes when we're on campus and off online.
Would you change anything, Harrison?
Not really. It's really nice here.
Great. Emma, what about you? I know you're only a month in, but what do you think?
Probably just like everyone, the students can relate to how you feel. It's very easy to start a conversation because everyone knows how you're feeling, especially in these times. And that's amazing, which is really nice. And I don't really have anything I would change.
Thanks. Liam, what about you?
I'm like all of them. Everyone here is super nice. And to change, I'd change nothing. Everything here is really good.
Maggie, what are your thoughts? Best thing about Landmark and anything you've changed?
Well, the best thing about Landmark for me is the teachers like are a little slower and stuff. Like at my old school, like I'd be so much behind and stuff, and the teachers would be a little fast and stuff, and it'd be very hard for me to I'd be working on something maybe a decent amount of time longer than everyone else. But it's easier because everyone is much more patient and calmer here. And like in my old school, everyone was like, when I was confused on a part, they were like, how are you confused on this? This is quite simple. And here everyone understands and is when I'm confused on something or something like that. And the one thing I would change is I wish all the classes were a little closer to each other.
The walk in between?
Yeah, it's a little like I sometimes have to go from one class to another and I have to walk halfway across the school. Like sometimes to go to gym from in the morning, like sometimes I sneak through because I don't want to have to go all the way around just to get right back through, like basically the same way I could have just snuck through.
Gotcha. Small change, campus layout. Thank you guys. Okay, so more families have asked some questions. So the most recent question that came in is asking about interesting projects or experiments, hands-on learning that you've done. So if you can think of a good example of something you've enjoyed that's been hands-on, raise your hand and you can share. Yeah, Harrison. What'd you do?
There was this salt and pepper experiment when you had a plastic spoon. You can rub it on like a carpet or your hair and it'll stick because of the static electricity.
Neat. That was in science?
Yeah.
Cool. Emma, what jumps out at you?
How the Landmark teaches math. We go outside a lot and we're jumping math problems, and it just helps we all get it more because our bodies are moving, and that's what we remember instead of just someone screaming out math equations to us. So it's very different, and that's what's nice about it.
Good example. Liam, what jumped out at you?
I'm like most things in science is always hands-on, like all the experiments is hands-on. So yeah.
Maggie, from
Um,
a project you've done maybe?
well, we've been in one of my classes. We've been working on cursive, and we'll go up to the board and we'll use a whiteboard marker and trace big on the board, and before it's our turn or after it's our turn, we'll practice with our finger on the carpet and stuff, and we'll work together, and it's so much easier when we in that, like, being able to go through it first and stuff before just like my old school, before going through it much first and stuff. They just, okay, here's your paper, blah 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 blah, there, okay, now do it. And I'm like, and so it's easier when I can go through it for a minute or two first before going through it, and that's how it's worked. That's what stuck out for me when we're able to go through it as a class before doing that.
Great. All right, last question, students, and then I'll send you to your third period class. One of the questions was about school sports or after school activities. I'm going to adapt that question because I know, the start of the year has been a little bit different. So in addition to sports or after school activities, you can think about elective class too. So maybe in your time at Landmark, your favorite either sport, after school activity, or elective. So we'll just do this quick. You'll just say the name. Harrison, you can go first. Favorite activity?
Well, I was gonna do an after school activity, but my brother in the high school, he doesn't have anything to do. So I'm not gonna do after school activities, but the electives, they're very nice. They're active, and it's different than other schools.
What's been your favorite elective you've done?
Well, my favorite elective over the years is probably digital art and practical arts.
Nice. Can you explain what practical arts is? That might be new to me.
You make stuff out of different materials. You make stuff out of wood, and you can use like engines, like make your own electric engines. There is these types of things that we make. They're CO2 cars. There's like a specific track. You use you put two hooks under the car. You make the design of the car, and then you put in the axle and the wheels, and then they'll drill a hole in the back so you can fit the CO2 cartridge in. And there's the launcher. So you push that back, and then you press the button, and then that little launcher would shoot forwards and pop a hole into the cartridge to make it launch.
Was your CO2 car timed?
No, but the speed on mine's, once it went 80 something miles per hour.
It's crazy. I love that day on campus when you guys launch. Emma, are you in an elective right now?
Oops. Yeah, I enjoy, where is my camera? Sorry.
That's okay.
I enjoy, we have woodworking or small engines, which is really nice to have.
Great. Liam, have you done sports on campus or just for your town?
I've done after school activities last year. One of them I did was the bike. You actually got bike down trails. It was really fun.
And Maggie, how about you? Your favorite activity or after school or elective?
Well, at elective, we do a lot of like decoration art projects and stuff. Like we made paper masks, and we colored them in of animals and stuff. And we do like projects like that, and which is fun and stuff that I enjoy.
Great. Great. Guys, the compliments are rolling in for you 4 students. Super brave. Again, it's so generous of you to give up your break in the morning to spend it helping families learn more about landmarks. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want you guys to log off because you've got to get to your next class. And then we will, the admissions team will help wrap up today's session. Faculty, I know you probably need to run too, so thank you everyone so much for your time. Emily and I will just end with a few notes about the admissions process, but thank you students, thank you faculty.
Thank you, students.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Amazing
You're
job.
welcome.
You were great.
You're around.
Nice job, everyone.
Yay. My goodness, definitely my favorite part.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I think we got to most of the questions. Again, we'll be sending out a recording and you'll have all our contact information, so feel free to reach out if questions occur to you later. If there's any burning questions, please type them in now and we'll make sure that we get to them. But I think it might make sense to end with Emily talking, just reiterating the admissions process and kind of next steps, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so thank you again for coming today. I'm so glad that you were here with us, and I'm so glad that we all got to hear that wonderful student panel. So in terms of our enrollment situation and application process, I know some people on this call have asked about current mid-year placement. So I just wanted to say we are full at the elementary middle school program for the current year, but we are actively processing applications for this coming summer 2021, and the 2021-22 school year. So you can apply anytime. We have a rolling process. Submit application materials via email. We have a downloadable application on our website. It's a modifiable PDF application, or you can download it, print it out, complete it, and send it in. And so we will work with you to gather the materials that we need. So look through the application, fill it out, but then it's fine to start sending information into us and we will help you create a complete file. Once that file is complete, it's carefully reviewed, and we will be in touch with you throughout that process and then talk with you about the final steps in the process once that review is complete. The final steps this year include a placement screening and an interview process that will take place virtually. So we'll be setting up a Google Meet session to be able to have conversations with you and with your student, and to be able to do a placement screening that will help confirm current skill levels and current aspects of their learning. So that's the process. But again, I think the most important part is that it's a rolling process and you can get started anytime. We really look forward to working with you and receiving your application materials. So thank you again for coming today. We are thrilled that you could make it, and we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.